Hi, this is Joe with Prep Agent. That's me, Prep Agent, and I'm here with my friend Nicole. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Joe.
And Nicole's from Texas, correct?
Correct.
I'm getting a lot of requests from people from Texas recently. I'm not sure what's going on with my Texas popularity, but I will take it. Happy to be welcome wherever I can be. And a lot of people from Texas have been asking me about state portion versus national portion. What I want people to understand is the majority of everything here is going to be on every exam, no matter what state you are. It's a small portion of stuff that apply to your state specifically. However, people don't realize how much goes across the border to every state. But if you're not sure if something applies to your state, just check with your local instructor or your local textbooks to verify if that's the case. But what I want people to get out of this, there's nothing that we're going to do that's going to make you less prepared for your test. It just may not be the state specific content. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So Nicole gave me some questions she wanted to go over to get ready for her exam. When is your exam?
It's Friday. Kind of trying to gauge it. If I'm not ready, then I have the option uh, to reschedule.
You'll be ready. Don't reschedule. You'll be ready. One of my biggest secrets about the exam is people get nervous. Do you tell your friends you're taking the exam?
No, I don't.
Great. Why is it bad to tell all your friends you're taking your exam?
Because they would consistently keep asking me. I tell them I'm studying, and that's about it.
Yeah. They'll ask you, let's say, how's it going with your exam? You're doing well with your exam? You're taking your exam, right? Did you pass your exam? You don't need that pressure. This isn't high school. You're not a senior in high school waiting for your report card to come home. You're an adult.
Right.
Nobody needs to know this. So when you go take your exam and they ask you where you're going, tell them you're going for a yoga class or your Zumba class. Tell them you're going to Starbucks. But you don't need to tell them you're taking the exam. And then one day you're going to come back in a few months. And you're going to say, I have my real estate license. They'll be like, I didn't know you took your exam. They're like, oh, I didn't tell you? Why, yes, I did. They don't need to know that you were preparing, maybe even not passing, getting ready to get your real estate license. All they need to know is now you have it. So people, stop telling your friends and family you're taking your exams. All it does is create more pressure. Nicole, sounds like you already got that concept down.
Absolutely.
As we do a webinar that's going to be put on the World Wide Web, right?
Okay. Right.
So I'm about to break your secret. But with that being said, for the benefit of everybody else, we're breaking Nicole's secret of preparing for the exam, and we're ready to look at our first question. Sound good?
Sounds good. Let's go.
Okay, let's go. Okay, so read this out loud for me, please.
Okay, which of the following statements about the income approach to value is correct? A, it determines an investment property value based on its return. B, it is used more frequently than the direct sales comparison. C, it is the most accurate value of appraising single-family homes. And D, produces the highest estimate of value possible.
Okay, so we're talking about appraisal here, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few questions here. I'm going to try and lead you to your own answers. So, what type of appraisal approaches can you name? Let's start there.
Um, let's see, market value.
Okay.
Um,
Well, they're all kind of market value. There's a more complete name. I know which one you're getting at, but there's a more complete name, and it's important because part of that name is the definition.
um, it says it's an income approach.
That's a different one.
Okay.
Okay, so we got
Well,
the income approach.
I know that this is going to relate to investment property.
Right, right. But let's
So it's
name all of
gonna,
them first. So you got the income approach, right?
okay.
Okay, I'm taking a step back and doing a little appraisal review for you before we go back to
Okay.
the question. So you got the income approach. Okay, what's another one?
Okay. Um, I can't think right off the bat.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you live in a house?
Apartment.
Okay, an apartment, that's fine. How do you know the value of it?
The value of the apartment?
Do you do the income approach?
No.
What would you do?
Um,
And let's just assume you're buying a condo. Let's just go there. Because with an apartment with rent and all that, it may take a
uh-huh.
different direction.
Uh-huh.
So how would you know the value of a condo that you purchased?
Oh, you'd have to get an appraisal,
And what would they do?
and they would do a comparative analysis.
There we go. Now we're getting closer. So what appraisal approach is that?
That's gonna be like the market value.
Market data comparison approach.
Okay.
See, I knew you were getting at this one. It's just the reason I wanted to use the whole word here um, is because, as I said, the definition's in the name, and this word comparison. When you said market value, well, they all kind of determine value, right?
Right.
So this one kind of describes it. There's one more approach that you should know for your exam. Do you know what that is?
Um.
What do you think? Let me ask you this. On a library,
Uh-huh.
use the market data comparison approach.
No.
Okay. Could you use the income approach?
No.
So what do you do for a library?
Um. I know why you wouldn't use it, but I can't think of. Um. I can't think of it.
What you would use is something called the cost
Replacement.
approach.
Okay.
How much would it cost to replace it brand new? That's essentially what that approach is. Okay? So we
Okay.
said, what
Okay.
type of approaches can you name? Okay, right there. That's a nice
Okay.
new feature on my new Keynote upgrade. I just upgraded my Mac.
Okay.
What type of, I know, right? You like that I'm learning on your time, right?
Yeah.
What type of appraisal approach can you name? So you got the income approach, the market data comparison approach, and the cost replacement approach. Okay?
Okay.
When do you use each type?
Where the income one you would use it if you're maybe trying to determine using the GMR.
Okay, so what are you getting at here? You use it when?
Well, when you're trying to figure out like a rental property, perhaps.
How about just you're using income to relate its value?
Okay.
So here, we're gonna make it real simple. Ready? Converting income into value. So that's when you use so stuff like a shopping center would be a great example of that.
Okay.
Okay, so converting income into value. Okay,
Okay.
when would you use the market data comparison approach?
When you're trying to determine the value of other properties to put a value on uh, the property you're looking at.
Let's make it even more simple than that. Your home.
Okay.
Okay, so what kind of real estate agent are you going to choose to be? A residential or commercial?
Residential.
Okay,
Residential.
so residential, you're going to have to use the market
The
data
market
comparison.
data approach.
Okay, and what do we say the cost replacement approach would be used for?
Well, I would say maybe um, like if it were like an old building or an old house in a neighborhood or something, and you're trying to figure out how the value of it there, and so you'd have to figure it based on replacement because it's a really old house.
Okay, good. So it's better for old. It's actually not as good for old buildings. Better for new buildings. Um, what was the example I gave? The reason I slipped up there was typically these
You
buildings.
use a library.
Yeah, and that's why I thought libraries are typically old. But it's actually more difficult when it's old because you're looking at the cost to replace it brand new. You're not looking
Right.
at what it costs to replace it in 1910 or whenever it was built. You're looking at the cost to replace it today in 2015, almost 2016. Time flies, right? So, cost
Right.
replacement approach Here's the word I want you to remember. You ready for this? Special
Special
purpose
purpose.
properties. So what are
Okay.
examples of special purpose properties?
Like a church,
Okay.
library,
Police
school.
stations, schools. You get the idea because these properties don't have comparisons, right?
Right.
I mean, typically there's one of these properties in each town, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have a library next to another library in the same town. So, and you don't really, those buildings are not there for income purposes, correct?
Correct.
So, special purpose properties would be like libraries, police stations, schools, things of that nature. And you could get other examples, but you get the idea. All right. So let's go
Correct.
back to this. Now, a little quick review of something I said a few minutes ago. If you don't remember, don't worry about it. What is the income approach? What did I say that one's for? I give a very short definition of that.
To determine income to value.
Excellent. Good. You did remember. We said it's a method of converting income into value. And I said this in many of my other webinars. I'll say this to you as well. Keep everything as simple as possible. A lot of people will say the income approach, and they'll get into these definitions. They'll say, well, it's for malls, and and you can use it here, and you get, this type of cost analysis, and and this rent, blah, blah, blah. That's a lot to remember for everything for your exam, correct?
Absolutely.
So just keep it as short as possible. Convert income into value. And then my hope is when you take your exam, your thought processes will lead you to the correct answers if you just understand these very short phrases. Converts income
Okay.
into value. What we're trying to remember is keywords. Keywords as much as possible.
Okay.
Okay? So the less you have to remember, the better, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. So now let's look at this question again. Let's read it again and give it a whirl.
Okay. Which of the following statements about the income approach to value is correct?
So let's read the answers again, too, so for the people listening.
A, it determines an investment property value based on its return. B, it more frequently than the direct sales comparison. C, it is the most accurate value of appraising single-family homes. And D, produces the highest estimate of value possible.
Okay, what do you think the answer is? Dun-dun-dun-dum.
I would say A.
Nice, excellent, great job. So you look at that, you said it determines an investment property value based on its return. Fancy way of saying income, correct?
Income. Right.
Yeah. And my hope is that you'll look at that and say, well, Joe said converts income into value, it's return, that's income, that's the answer. This you know is not the answer because we said, what's this used for?
Market data approach
Right, when do we use that?
on your home.
Right, and that's done all the time. I never.
All the time. Residential. Yeah.
Right, and it's also the easiest to use, so people go to that first. It is the most accurate value of appraising single-family houses. No, right? We said you don't get income from your home, correct?
Right.
And you're not trying to produce the highest estimate of value. You're trying to produce the most accurate, correct?
Correct.
Great. So you got that answer. You're one step closer to having a real estate license, right?
Right.
Yes. Good. Okay. All right. Now we're getting to finance. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Okay, what do you think the answer? Oh, let's read this one out loud.
Okay, when a buyer purchases a property subject to seller's existing mortgage, the following statement is correct. A, the seller's credit will not be affected by foreclosure on the property. B, the seller is protected from all liability of the loan. C, any mortgage loan obtained by the buyer is complete. I'm sorry, any mortgage loan obtained by the buyer to complete the purchase will be first mortgage. And D, the seller's obligation under the existing loan remains unchanged.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. What is the difference between assume and subject to?
You have a choice. Basically, if you assume something, it's your choice to assume. Subject to would be in lieu of, well, not necessarily in lieu of, but would be to you.
Okay, so you got the definition of the actual words down really well. How would it apply to getting loans? What do you think?
Well, for instance, if it was a VA loan, it might be assumable.
Okay, all right. So here, let me break it down even simpler for you, because I think you get this concept pretty well. But we want to nail it down to the most simplest definition. I have this way of looking at the real estate exam and life for that matter whenever you're explaining things. And my question
Hmm.
is, could you explain this to a 5-year-old?
Yeah,
Maybe 5-year-old's ambitious. My point is,
I.
people think intelligent people always understand complicated concepts, which may be true. But in my eyes, the most intelligent people are able to explain any concept in the simplest forms. Not to be able to understand it, but to be able to disseminate it as well. Okay?
Okay.
And if you could get a 10-year-old to understand, then you could get anybody to understand because you have to be able to understand the concept in order to simplify it. So if I'm a 10-year-old, how would you explain assume and subject to? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
um, for assume, I would say don't just think that I want some of your cookie.
Okay.
Um, it, it would mean I'm just going to give you some, but don't just think that I want it.
Okay. Here's my words
So,
I'm going to use. All right. Okay. Assume buyer liable, subject to seller liable.
okay.
Okay. So assume buyer is liable for responsibility of the loan.
Hmm.
Subject to the seller's liable. Okay. So if I sell you the house, I have a loan. You, Nicole, could assume my loan. You're responsible.
Right.
Subject to you, Nicole, could have this property subject to the fact I have a loan on this property that needs to be paid off.
Gotcha.
So let's look at this definition here. Can you read that out loud?
Um, assume means the lender replaces the name on the mortgage with the buyer's, and the buyer becomes legally responsible for making the payment.
Good. So assume the buyer's responsible, right?
Right. So as to say, if I said assumable, which means that if you assume it, then that means you are now responsible for it
As the buyer, yes.
as a buyer.
Yes. And this is why I know you understood the concept as you were talking about different types of loans that are assumable VA. And that's what I meant. And that's why I tried to stop you and said, hey, we're getting a little too complicated for this. For your real estate exam, let's back up here and get it to the most simplest definition before we get into real life real estate examples. And
Okay.
what we got here is assume the buyer is liable. Subject to, okay, so
The buyer is not agreeing to make payments on the loan, but are acknowledging that there is a loan on the property and that their rights to the property are subject to the lender's rights, specifically the lender's right to foreclose. The buyer can walk away and not suffer any consequences.
when they say no consequences, what they're talking about is consequences of not paying a loan. There's a consequence that my property could be foreclosed because the seller, the guy who originally sold this to me, excuse me, is not making the payments he's obligated towards the lender. So I'm getting this property subject to the fact that you have a loan on the property that needs to be paid.
Right.
So subject to and assume. That's what we need to know now. That's what you need to know for the exam. And before people get into issues about VA or different types of loans or different types of deals, you got to understand the core of the definition. And if you just
So,
understand this here, assume buyer liable, subject to
uh-huh.
seller liable, not only will you pass your exam, But you'll also have a better understanding when you get into the more complicated concepts of loans, things like VA and whatnot.
So were you just saying, if I'm making sure that I'm correct, because I have two concepts going on in my head, just to
Okay.
make sure, just to confirm. So are you saying, okay, so the buyer is assumes, and but it's subject to the seller who's liable, who has the loan. So if you don't pay it, then because they've already assumed it, and this is the two things I had going in my mind, because they've already assumed it, then the assumer, I guess you could say, they're still liable because I've already sold it to you.
Yeah, so,
And so the seller is just going to walk away because it's no longer their loan.
right.
Is that
So,
what you were saying?
yeah, so if you have a house and you have a loan on that house, and I take over the house and I assume the loan,
Hmm.
you're good. See you later. Bye.
Right. Okay.
You have a house, you sell me the house, but I do not take over that loan. You still are obligated to make payments to the lender
Right.
as the
Absolutely.
seller. And if you don't make payments, this house I'm sitting in is going to get
It's going
foreclosed.
to be foreclosed on. Gotcha.
That's it. The why, when, and all that, get into after you pass your test. I'm not saying
Okay.
I'm saying to all the people listening as well. Because people are like, when does that apply? When do you do that? When does that work? First things first. Pass now, right? First pass and
Right. Right.
okay, so now we got the question at hand. Let's read that question
Okay.
again.
So when a buyer purchases a property subject to the seller, the following statement is correct. It would be
Let's read all the
D.
answers. Oh, okay.
Okay. Huh?
I was going to say read all the answers.
Okay. A, the seller's credit will not be affected by a foreclosure on the property. B, the seller is protected from all liability of the loan. And C, any mortgage loan obtained by the buyer to complete the purchase will be a first mortgage. And D, the seller's obligation under the existing loan remains unchanged. Oh, okay. So the seller will be affected. So the seller is protected from all liability of the loan.
Oh, your first impulse
The
is correct.
seller's obligation under the existing loan remains the same. The
Yeah,
seller's
it's subject to. Assume the buyer takes responsibility.
D, the seller's obligation on the existing loan remains unchanged.
Which was your first thing you said.
Yeah,
So remember, your first impulse is usually correct. Always go with
right,
your first impulse. We go through this every morning when we get dressed. You get dressed in the morning, you get your clothes, right?
right,
And the first thing you usually get is probably a pretty nice outfit. But then you have time. Time's the worst thing. These are what happens when you have time. You start going through the blue shirt, the red shirt, the green shirt, and you start matching with the pants, the shoes, correct?
right.
And what do you end up usually walking out of the door with?
What you first put on.
Exactly. Because there's a reason you reach for that in the beginning. There's a reason your first impulse was, you know what, that red shirt, it's great. I really like it. I'm all over that red shirt. There's a reason you do that. Then you start overthinking all the different scenarios of why that red shirt doesn't work. And you forget why you originally reached for that red shirt. The same applies for your exam. In fact, it's tenfold more for the exam. You'll start overthinking things and want to second guess yourself. Trust in your studies, trust in what you've done, and go with your first impulse. This is also why I tell people write down your first impulse. If you're not going to answer the question right then and there, jot down your first impulse because there may be a reason you need to review that question. Maybe you're just like, you know what, I just don't feel good about that answer. Let me look more at the other options. And you may find a better option. But if you don't, at least you remember what that first impulse was and you go with that. So if you're not sure after looking it over, go with that first impulse. Little
Okay.
test taking strategy for you. When was the last time you taken a test?
Last night.
No, before that. I'm talking about before the real estate exam.
Prob and it's about 6 weeks ago.
Oh, you're more recent than most. I was expecting to say years. Most people who take their real estate exam have not taken an exam of this nature in years, years and years and years and years. Because for most of us, this is a second career. And
It is for me.
yeah, exactly. Very few people sell real estate right out of high school. Um,
Right.
so most of us, it's a second job, second career, which means they haven't been to school in a while, which means the exam is intimidating and they get very nervous and they second guess themselves. So just be confident and just try and hear the testing strategies. You took one 6 weeks ago, so you're a little more recent. Why take an exam 6 weeks ago? Exams are not fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's read this question.
Okay, the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation Liability Act is administered by the Environmental Protection Agency, B, Department of Housing and Urban Development, C, Department of Health and Human Services, D, the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
What do you think here? So let me first ask you this. Okay. Um, what is this thing? The Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation Liability Act. Oh, that's a big word.
I honestly don't know.
Oh, I just actually gave the answer. My bad. All right.
Well, it's a key word in there, so I would assume it would have been that number one.
Yeah. Okay. So we have this thing here. The Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, otherwise known as CERCLA or Superfund. Sounds like a superhero. Provides a federal superfund to clean up uncontrolled or abandoned hazardous waste sites as well as accident spills and other emergency release of pollutants, contaminants into the environment. Through the CERCLA EPA, which is the answer to that question, was given power to seek out those parties responsible for any release and assure their cooperation in the cleanup. So basically, when an environmental disaster happens, this fund is there to clean it up immediately. And then they could go after the people who did it. But the fact is, when a disaster happens, you can't wait for the litigation to go through to have the disaster cleaned, correct?
Correct. So is this like the BP oil?
Ooh, I don't know about that one. I know what you're referring to, but I don't know how the legal things went through with that one. Caught me off guard with that question. But yes, that would be an example. I gotta assume.
Okay. Okay.
There's got to be
It's a
something.
cleanup. It's a cleanup of the oil. So I was just wondering if this would be a good example of that.
I think it would be, but don't quote me on that. But
Okay.
but you get the concept. You get the concept. The concept is
Yeah.
correct. I just don't know exactly how that all went down with the oil disaster.
Okay.
But yes, the concept is correct. It's meant for a fund so they can clean it up quickly before it provides more damage.
Okay. Gotcha.
So we go back to our question here. The Comprehensive
So
Environmental Response Compensation Liability Act administered by, we said the EPA.
A, the
What?
EPA.
But let me use this as a launch pad to ask you another question.
Okay.
The second option says Department of Housing and Urban Development. There's a pretty important act that's administered by HUD. Do you know which one that is?
The fair housing.
Yes. Oh, you're so awesome. Good. I did not think you'd get that one. I'll be honest. I'm very impressed. You got that one. Fair
Okay.
housing is administered by HUD. Excellent. Good job. Right. Can you give me an example of something that violates fair housing using obviously the keywords for your real estate exam? So I'm looking for a vocabulary word you have to learn for your real estate exam that's a fair housing violation.
Discrimination.
That's a word, but that's not the word on your real estate exam. That's not I mean, that's obviously a,
Violation.
do you know things like, maybe my question's a little too vague. Do you know things like blockbusting and steering and redlining?
Yeah. Yeah. Blackbusting, steering, puffing. Yes.
That's what,
Redlining.
yeah, I was going in that direction. What's
Okay.
blockbusting?
It's when you refuse to when you want to put somebody in a certain neighborhood and without showing them anything else.
Oh, no, that's steering.
Well, oh wait, it may have to do with the geographic area.
Here, I'll just tell you how blockbusting is. Blockbusting is if I go to you, I say, Nicole, you need to sell this property. You go, why, Joe? Because, those people live here, and you don't want to live by them. Values will go down, crime will go up, it'll be horrible. You don't want to live by those people, do you? Am I violating fair housing with that statement?
Yes.
Blockbusting. Okay?
Yes.
It's also, I'm trying to create panic and trying to get you to sell based upon discrimination.
Right.
Steering is the example you gave where I said, oh, Nicole, you're one of those people. You should live by them because they live here.
Right.
I'm
Gotcha.
directing you. And I always think of it this way, steering a car. You're steering a car. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because when you
I
have
got it. I just
buyers,
was thinking I knew that already. I just was thinking something else.
yeah, no worries. I just think of it like when you have buyers, you steer a car.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so there you go. So now we know that one, right? We're going to get it right on our exam, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. By the way, I keep flashing past this. This is my little plug for my website, prepagent.com. You got the webinars, the
Okay.
MP3s, the ebooks, crossword puzzles, videos. Everybody loves my videos. So everybody please check it out when you get off this page, and I'd really like it if you guys embrace it. But for now, continue on. That's my plug for the day. No more plugs.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Let's read this one out loud.
Um, a listing sales agent must disclose what information to potential buyers? A, any zoning changes made after the property was listed. B, any ethnic diversity in the neighborhood. C, the financial status of the seller. D, the amount the seller originally paid for the property.
Okay.
So,
Here, let me go
you
here.
want me to answer it?
No, don't answer yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so here you said a listing sales agent must disclose what information potential buyers, and you read all these zoning changes, ethnic diversity, status of the seller, or what the seller originally paid. Let me ask you this: are you hired to sell a property or to sell people?
I'm hired to find a buyer.
Oh, I love you said that. That is so good. I was going to lead in towards that. You jumped ahead. Good. Um, did you get that from my other webinar? Please say you did. I feel good about myself.
I I did.
Okay, I might be wrong enough. I'll take it. Yes, you are not. Okay, first, what I was getting, I would hope you'd say is, oh, well, Joe, I deal with properties, not people. Okay, and I'll show you where I'm going with that. But you jumped ahead of me and you said, but actually, Joe, it's neither. That's a trick question because you are not hired to sell a property. You're hired to find a ready, willing, and able buyer.
A buyer.
Yes, excellent. You're totally going to pass. You better take this exam on Friday. Yeah, so listing, okay, back up. What's a listing agreement? Now I'm going to test you a little more. Now you prove that you're on it.
It's an employment contract.
Good. Who's getting employed?
You, the salesperson.
No,
Who's getting employed?
the broker is.
Oh, the broker. I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah,
you're right. The
and the
broker. It's
salesperson.
never you. It's always the broker.
Excellent. And the salesperson works under the broker. It's why people think it's a salesperson because that's who they see on a day-to-day basis and that's who they interact with. But it's really the
Right.
broker. Why is it the broker, not the salesperson? The broker's not doing anything.
Because the broker is the one that's responsible for everything that the salesperson is doing.
Excellent. Good. Excellent. All right. Here we go. So, boom, boom. Okay, so you are hired to sell property, sell people. You said, I'm actually hired to find a buyer. What I was getting at here, well, let's answer this question here.
Um, A,
Okay, so you said a listing sales agent must disclose which information to buyers? Zoning changes, ethnic diversity, financial status, or the amount the seller paid? And you said the answer was what?
I say A because
Yes.
if the zone changes, then they're going to have to pay higher, possibly pay higher taxes.
Right, and once again, and you're spot on, and you're absolutely right. What I'm trying to get at was the learning technique I was trying to use. And I try and give simple ways to people for people to pass the exam. And when I said, are you working with people or properties? You're never there to really talk about the people as a general rule. There are situations you should, but generally speaking, you should not be talking about the people. Whether it's ethnic diversity, which is what we talked about could violate fair housing, financial
Right.
status of the seller, that goes under the none of your business to the buyer.
Fiduciary. Yeah. Right.
And you're also talking about how much the seller originally paid. You're talking about the people there. You shouldn't be talking about the people. You should be talking about the property.
Property.
Yes. And when you're talking about the buyer, you're talking about the buyer's ability to pay for the property.
You
And I said
shouldn't be
there's a few
talking about
gray
that.
areas there, but you understand the point of what I'm getting at as a way to help you pass the exam.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you got this one totally correct. But there may be some where you're just, gosh, I'm not sure. Well, this has to do with the people, and we should be talking about the property. As a general rule, you'll always stay safe for your exam and legally when you practice if you stick to the facts about the property and avoid talking about people. Oh,
Okay.
what are the four essential elements of value?
Um.
Hmm.
Does that so would that say would that would be income would be one?
Nope.
No, okay. Let me think. What are the essential elements of value? Okay, I can't think.
Tell me if you want help.
I want help.
Okay. You could use this or this to help you remember.
Um, I remember seeing that. Um, it's a set of initials too, isn't it? Let's see. And utility. Okay, utility. Ah, gotcha.
Okay. Four essential elements of value: scarcity, transferability. Totally spelled that wrong. Did I spell that wrong?
Y-
I don't know. You know what that means, right?
Ability, transfer ability.
There you go.
Got
I can't figure out why it's doing that, but
it. You got filthy.
I was like that.
There you go.
Okay, scarcity, transferability, utility, demand. I use the word stud. Some people use the word dust. Dust, stud, tizida, it doesn't matter. As long as you remember scarcity, transferability, utility, demand. Dust is demand,
Hmm.
utility, scarcity, and transferability. The four essential
Okay.
elements of value. The reason I bring that up, because on your exam when they ask about that, they'll give another option.
Hmm.
Cost. Is cost one of the four essential elements of value?
Not according to what you just put here.
And not according to the real estate books that are going to help you pass your exam. So
Okay.
my point is the amount the seller originally paid for the property is not relevant.
Okay. Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yes, because you're talking about the cost.
Exactly. Okay, so the listing agent does not need to disclose that to the buyer because what the seller paid for it is not relevant to what the buyer is going to pay for it.
Right.
All right. It talks about zoning changes. What's it called when a zone changes from commercial to residential?
From it's called non-conforming.
Nope.
When it changes from residential to commercial,
Commercial to residential.
are you talking about a
Down zoning.
town zoning?
All right.
Okay, because I couldn't hear understand you. I'm sorry. Oh, down zoning. I've not even come across that term.
We did now. Down zoning
Okay.
goes from commercial to residential. Okay, let me go back across terms you have come across. Is zoning a government power?
Yes.
Under what government power is it fall under?
Police power?
Excellent. Good. What are the other government powers?
Eminent domain?
Good.
Um, police power? Um, um, Pertinence?
No?
Wait, let me see. Eminent domain, police power. Government. I'm
Police power.
trying to think. Yeah, police power.
I'll help you out with this one.
Taxation.
Good, good. Yes, yes.
Um.
All right.
Um.
Power.
mhm,
Eminent.
Eminent domain. Taxation. And don't give me the E yet. Taxation. Easement.
No.
Um. Escheat. Oh, okay.
There you go. It's cheap. Sorry, I gave it to you. You said don't give it to you. I'm a bad instructor.
Oh yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah, escheat, because that's when somebody passes without a will and they don't have. Gotcha.
Good. Excellent. What's eminent domain?
That's the government has a right to come in and say, we need to do this for this highway, and your property's there, and we gonna take it.
What's that process called when they take it and give you money?
I forgot.
Condemnation.
Condemnation. Okay.
Right. And then if they take your property and don't give you the money, you could sue for inverse condemnation. That's a tough
Adverse.
one, but just so you know, you did great there. Really well.
Okay.
I was I
Okay.
was I was pushing the envelope with you.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, so really quick, what are the four essential elements of value? Answer it really quickly.
Pete.
No.
Oh, let's see. It was scarcity, um, scarcity, transferability, utility, and what's the last one? Um, demand.
Good. Bang. Demand, utility, scarcity, transferability. Next. What's it called when a zone changes from commercial to residential?
Uh, down zoning.
Good. What government power is zoning under?
Um, police power.
Good. What are the other government powers?
Um, eminent domain, taxation, escheat, and um, taxation,
And police power.
police power.
Yeah, good. Awesome. You're doing great. Okay. Okay, read this one out loud for our audience.
Property owners who want to list their property tell their license, we want to sell only to a member of a minority group. In this situation, the licensee should advise the owners of A, advise the owners that they cannot legally discriminate against non-minority group members. B, explain that it must be an open listing. C, explain the consequences of the violation of the Federal Housing Act. D, report the owners, or E, remind the owners of their fiduciary responsibilities.
Okay, so I have five options here because everybody knows we're not normally going to have five options on our exam, but still, we're going to learn the concepts.
Okay.
All right. Are you a lawyer?
No.
Are you an inspector?
No.
Are you an accountant?
No.
You're going to be a real estate agent. Do you come
Right.
across people? Have you met real estate agents before?
Yes.
And have you had real estate agents give legal advice, tax advice, or decorative advice, or even inspection?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they have.
I love your honest answer. I asked one person, they were like, no. It's like, come on, we've all seen it. People pass their real estate license, they get their exam, and then they pass, and they're just like, oh, you could totally sue them. Oh, your foundation's ruined. Oh, that should be blue. Oh, have you thought about deducting this from your taxes? They are going above and beyond the scope of their responsibility. Okay? And I mean, you're a Zumba instructor, right?
And a licensed insurance agent.
And a licensed insurance agent. But if I collapse on your floor, could you start giving me surgery?
No, but I can give you CPR.
Right, but that's it. You're licensed to do that. But beyond that, you're supposed to call in somebody with a higher degree of
Right.
license. Maybe not the best example, but you get the idea.
Yes.
Right. So agents often think they're lawyers and all this, and we know they're not. We know what they did. I mean, it's not easy passing this test, but passing this test does not law school make. And a lot of agents seem to forget that. So what you got to do is talk in terms of facts, not always give advice. In fact, even when you're listing a house, you hear agents say, "What should I list this for?" Technically speaking, to be legally safe, you should not say, "You know what, Nicole? I think you should list it for $500,000. That'd be great." Do agents do that?
Yes.
They shouldn't. What they should be saying is, "Nicole, here's the facts. This house sold for 510. It has same features as yours. That one sold for 490." And continue with factual information so the seller could come to their own conclusion. Because if you tell them to do something like sell for 500 grand and they don't get 500 grand, you can actually be legally responsible. So instead of opinions, you talk in terms of facts. So when we look at this question,
Gotcha. Yeah.
yeah, can you read this question again for me?
Okay. Property owners who want to list their property tell their license, we want to sell only to a member of a minority group. In this situation, the licensee should advise the owners advise the owners that they cannot legally discriminate against non-minority group members. B, explain that it must be an open listing. C, explain the consequences of the violation of the Federal Housing Act, or report the owners to the local board of realtors, or remind the owners of their fiduciary responsibilities.
Okay, so let's go through these options. Okay, first, which one do you think is the answer?
Let's see. I would say, well, I was at a cross between A and C,
Mm-hmm.
but when you put in the terms about being a lawyer, being this, because on A, you're basically doing your due diligence with telling them,
There's a better way to
about,
do this, though.
huh?
So I don't like the fact you're advising them to do anything.
Right.
So
Okay, that's what I was about to say, because
get
you
rid of
said don't be a lawyer.
right. So let's get rid of that one.
Okay. And then, uh, um, well, C, you would be explaining because that is part of your duty.
Good.
Uh, and you need to know about the things of violating the Federal Housing Act. So the average consumer wouldn't know that, and they depend on you and your expertise to tell them.
So what do you think the answer is?
As C,
Excellent. So you see what you just did. First, before you may have circled A, but then if you think about what we spoke about, you're like, wait a minute, I'm not in a position to advise people to do things of this nature. I could get myself in trouble. I mean, think about it. You could get into, okay, well, what's the minority, what's not a minority, and all these different discussions. By going with C, you're saying, here's the facts, here's what fair housing is, and here's the consequences. You're just stating what it is. And by doing that, you kind of are explaining to them that you are in a bad position by discriminating against people. You see the difference?
yes.
And that's a tricky question on the exam that comes up for people. By explaining the laws and the consequence of the laws, you're just explaining what is. And you're also explaining what is in terms of things that are on your real estate exam. This is stuff you should know. But by advising them, that's a different deal. So you did a great job there of breaking that down. Let's look at the other ones, though. Open listing, that's definitely not the answer. What's an open listing?
Oh, that's just where anybody can sell it, and including the seller.
Anybody, meaning anybody licensed, could find.
Anybody licensed, correct. Sorry.
Yeah, it's when you open it up to all the agents in the area. Reports the
Right.
owner to local board of realtors. What does the board of realtors care? They're not, realtors deal with licensed
Yeah.
people, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so
Correct.
they'll be like, we don't care. It's not our problem.
And
Remind
it wouldn't be either because you have the responsibility, the fiduciary with the seller.
exactly, which brings you to C, which you got that answer. Perfect. Good. Yeah, the Board of Realtors doesn't care. And they care.
care.
Yeah, they care about realtors. Okay, let's read this one.
In stating a seller's price and terms to a prospective buyer, the seller's broker is required by law of agency to state only those terms that are A, included in the listing agreement, B, based on the broker's evaluation of prevailing prices and terms, C, favorable for the seller as determined by the broker, and D, attractive to buyers as determined by the broker.
Okay, what do you think? Let's look at some things here. What is an agent?
Well, an agent is a person who has had the authority to do something
On behalf of another.
on behalf of another. Yes.
Keyword, on behalf of another. Okay, one who represents and acts another under a contract or relationship of agency. Okay, there's a reason I brought that up as we look at this. So what do you think? Let's read this one again and tell me what you think the answer is.
Okay. In stating a seller's price and terms to the prospective buyer, the seller's broker is required by law of agency to state only the terms that are A, included in the listing agreement, B, based on the broker's evaluation of prevailing prices and terms, C, favorable for the seller as determined by the broker, and D, attractive to buyers as determined by the broker. I think it's just A.
Okay, I have a general rule of thumb for not only when you practice real estate, but also for your real estate exam. People always say the real estate exam is not relevant to what you actually do. More of it's relevant than what people think. And here's an example of this. And what I'm getting at, as a general rule, this actually applies in kindergarten as well. You should
Okay.
not say anything that you wouldn't say in front of that person. So if you wouldn't say
Right.
the seller was standing next to you, don't say it at all. Isn't that like the rule in kindergarten?
Yeah.
Like if you can't say it with that person there, then you shouldn't be saying it. Then you know it's wrong if that's
Right.
the case. So if you're looking at this, so you're representing the seller, and you're saying,
Mhm.
well, I can tell you what's included in the listing agreement, even if the seller's right here. No problem. But based upon the broker's evaluation of prevailing prices and terms, what would the seller say?
Um, I don't know what the seller would say because
The seller would
the
be like,
broker.
wait, we just went over that. That's how we came up with the listing price. What are you doing? Why are you talking about this?
Yeah. Right.
Favorable by the seller as determined by the broker. The seller would be like, I just told you what was favorable, what was good. What are you doing?
I gave you the price. Right. Yeah.
Why do we have this listing price? What are you doing? Attractive to the buyers as determined by the broker. Now the seller is really going to lose his head.
Yeah.
If the
Yeah.
seller's there, like, hey buyer, I think this would be much better for you. The seller would be like, fiduciary duty, fiduciary duty. So boom, include it in the listing agreement. And that's another general rule that I think will help you. And people think in such complicated terms. If you just think of stuff simple, like what you do in kindergarten, it'll actually help you pass the exam. Simple stuff. You can't say in front of the other person, you shouldn't be saying it. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, let's do one more really quickly and let's call it a day.
Okay. If a leasee pays a fixed amount of rent plus all expenses, this lease is known as a net lease, B, a gross lease, C, percentage lease, or D, a lease option.
What do you think?
I would say
Well, here.
per C.
Okay. So you'd say C, right?
Because he's paying more than one thing.
Hmm.
He's paying a set amount plus he's paying some other stuff too. So it's not one single thing. So
Right.
like if you live like in an apartment, you're gonna pay one rent, that's it. So
Okay.
that's
Let's
like
let's go
your
through these really quick. So my next thing was like, when will you use each? When will you use a lease option?
When would you use a lease option?
Know what a lease option is?
Yes, it's an option to purchase after you've leased for a period of time.
Excellent, good. So it's a lease with an option to purchase. And then when you exercise that option, that amount you paid in rent could go towards a down payment. That's an option.
Right,
Percentage lease is for retail properties to pay a percentage of the gross receipts.
right.
Okay. A gross lease is what your average person uses when you rent property. It's just you pay a fixed amount. I'm paying $1,000
Fixed
a month.
amount.
That's it.
Right.
A net lease is also known as a triple net lease, but that's just slang. It implies you pay for tax, insurance, and maintenance.
Taxes, insurance, and maintenance.
But that's slang because that's typically what you're paying for. Technically, a net lease is a fixed amount of rent plus the expenses. So the answer there would be net lease.
Bingo.
You get that because percentage lease is based upon a percentage of the amount you're selling. And this is living
Yeah.
without selling anything here.
Yes. Gotcha.
Okay. How'd you do today?
I think I did pretty well.
I think you did great. I think you did great. I think you should absolutely take it Friday, nail down what you don't know this week, and you're going to do awesome on Friday. So I think
Great.
you're good to
Thank you.
go. So with that being said, I think we're done for the day. If everybody wouldn't mind looking at my site, prepagent.com, I'd appreciate it. Leave comments below the webinar, and I'll try and answer whatever I can. And until next time, this is Joe, prepagent.com, and thank you, Nicole from Texas. And after she passes, you can not only get insurance, but you could also buy a house with her, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so what I want to do for people like you, after you pass, I'm going to post on my website, my Facebook page, that you pass so people know where to find you to get business.
Awesome.
So get that LinkedIn profile ready to go. And everybody look for me on LinkedIn, and we'll see if we could help each other out. Sound good?
Sounds good. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you, Nicole.